warm beans tonight.
And the main thing is you got to hope that none of your bushes are wet. And that's not even me being fun and sassy. I mean, the bushes can't be physically wet or the lightning won't catch.
Oh, I see.
There are many witnesses, especially children, that were involved with this. Because basically, once the cops went out there and Marcel first went out there and they were digging up, they were moving all of the debris off the field. There were kids just literally running around playing with shit.
Yeah.
And they were like, let him do it. And there was a girl that was a farmer, a local farmer, came to help remove the debris from the field. And she remembers picking up the metal and watching it melt in her hand. And then she threw it on the ground. She was like, ha, 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 that's fun. Like kids do when they don't realize that they are a part of something fucking deeply cryptic and secret.
Yeah.
And then they were apparently allegedly approached by the CIA afterwards. A man with a baseball bat started talking to her, pulled her out onto her front porch, slapped his bat against his hand, and said, a lot of little girls go missing in the desert.
That was Babe Ruth. Yeah, it seems like it's, to steal a term we always often use here, willy-nilly. They're just kind of going, where is the importance?
Cavett, after he loaded up all of his shit in the trunk of his car, he showed up at his house at 2 a.m. and shook his wife and 11-year-old son awake and made them come into the kitchen to look at the shit and play with the shit. Because at the time, it wasn't classified
No.
yet.
Right.
So he wasn't necessarily doing anything wrong. He was just showing his wife and kid some cool shit that he found out in the desert.
Well, he said if this was really alien-based, if this was non-terrestrial material, this is going to be the only time they'd get to see it because it's about
Right.
to become classified in a hot second.
I'm giving him-
God knows if you're giving everybody cancer or not, but he didn't even think about that.
But this guy is Father of the Year. I got to say, if you get woken up by your father and he shows you alien materials, very cool, Dad.
I mean, I don't know. Getting woken up at 2 a.m. by your dad to tell you about something that he found in the desert that day.
It sounds like something your dad
Yeah,
would
you
do.
would love that, Marcus.
I mean,
Yes, you would.
You'd think I would have.
I know you would have.
Now, the odd thing about the Roswell story is that in some version, the Army is a rabid, hyper-vigilant force on top of every aspect of the story. And in others, though, they seem to be almost cavalier and just fancy-free about the entire situation. On July 8th, and this is... I don't know. This seems to be one of the oddest parts of the story and something that I cannot figure out why they did this. The Army released an official statement, almost casually stating that a flying saucer had been captured outside of Roswell a few days before by a sheep herder and mentioned Jesse Marcel by name as the man who had recovered it. And they said that he was taking it to higher headquarters. He had loaned it to higher headquarters for further study. Why?
So this is Air Force. There's
No, this is Army. This is before the Air Force.
They
was
still got planes. They're right next to the goddamn Air Force. And they're just being like, they know what it is. If they thought it was going to be a weather balloon, the first thing you'd say is a weather balloon. You'd just be like, it's a fucking balloon.
I mean, maybe
it's
they
made
just-
out of liquid metal, and no
Right.
one wants to talk about that it's fucking Colossus shit.
Is it possible
out in the middle of a debris
they just got the
field.
verbiage wrong, though, and they're like, maybe we shouldn't have called it a flying saucer?
No, flying saucers very obviously.
Yeah, but
one
maybe they
thing.
just weren't. Maybe they didn't really understand
Whatever
the
it was,
phenomenon that was happening.
It was not a goddamn balloon.
No, it
Yeah.
definitely wasn't a balloon, but it's
Right.
so weird that they would actually say flying. So I almost think that it was someone like sarcastic, someone accidentally.
Yeah, it's a flying saucer.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and put out a press release and tell them that it's a flying saucer?
And that
Gee
kid's great.
Willikers, Mr. Marcel, I'll get right to the papers and do it. They're going to be way interested in this story. Aliens are everywhere.
Now, as far as the bodies go, allegedly, Glenn Dennis, a young mortician on duty at Ballard Funeral Home in Roswell, received a number of calls from the Roswell AAF mortuary officer asking about the availability of small caskets. The second call Dennis got was concerning various chemicals and what effects they would have on the blood and tissue of a deceased body, and also what procedures should be done for preparing a body that has been exposed to the elements. And when you hear the details of what the crash scene was actually like, according to some people, you'll understand exactly why the base mortuary officer was at a bit of a loss.
Well, yeah, you literally have the 5 tiny people that are all mashed up in different ways, and the first thing you get a call from an Army officer. It's like, hey, yes, this is Colonel Bubba Duck. I'm not making up a name, but let's say I'm making up a name. Can I get 5 children's coffins over to this field right now?
It seems like if aliens land, do we have to give them a human funeral?
No, this is one of those weird, New Mexico things that they threw in there, being like, well, the government wanted to make sure they got a proper burial.
Yeah, what, an open casket? I mean, what's happening?
Well, they needed to transport them somehow, and they thought it would be easier to transport them if they're transporting children's coffins.
Yeah,
that looks good for the government to just have a bunch of children's coffins lying around.
Well, because the problem is that no one really wants to fork one open and see what's inside, you know, because then you have to deal with all the, my son's still alive.
Oh yeah. I will say, if you have lost a loved one recently and they're in a coffin, just check it out. They might be alive.
I will say this:
you never know.
When I die, and if I decide to be buried in a coffin, I am now saying this on the radio, so you are legally bound to it. Once every 5 years, you are to dig open my grave.
It's illegal.
Open up the coffin and make sure I'm still inside.
I feel like you're just going to haunt all of us. Every 5 years, we're going to get together.
That's a part
and
of
it's
this.
going to be like, I know what you did last summer, and it's going to be terrifying.
Hey, so you know what time it is? It's 5 years coming up.
Oh,
Gotta go. I'll get the shovels. Yep,
time,
he's still dead.
just me smiling, but not have decomposed at all.
His nails are still growing.
Dr. Lejeune Foster, a renowned expert of spinal cord surgery and a former undercover FBI agent during World War II, was brought in to study the nervous systems of the mysterious creatures.
I don't know what these are, but they're fucked up.
That's your professional, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a doctor. I've been a doctor for years. I'm an expert in spinal cord injuries and the nature of the human body, and all of these things are fucked to shit. And they give me the creepy weepies, and I'm about to shit my pussy.
Okay, they're fucked up. They're fucked as shit. They give you the creepy jeepies, and you're about to shit your pussy.
I gotta get out of here.
You stand by those
I
comments.
just want to be done. I'm signing the form. I'm
This is
dating
the official
it.
form.
Yeah, July 7th, 1947. I got to go because I have to clean all this goopy fucking bottom throw up out of my old hole here, okay? Because this is just, I am beside myself.
I say don't even bother coming back.
She was understandably shaken by the experience and was told afterward that if she said anything, her medical license would be revoked and she would be killed.
Jesus.
She was often remarking for years upon years afterwards,
Someone in the government is trying to keep me quiet.
Doesn't sound like they're doing a good job. You seem to be talking an awful lot.
yeah, and it seemed like, from what the description was, it seemed like it was just something she would mutter to herself.
think
Her
they're-
pussy's all full of shit.
Yeah, well, I
She's
do believe
walking
that.
around,
She's white being
pussy all
wrong.
full, her pussy's all full of shit, thinking about aliens 24/7. Government's trying to put a fucking muzzle on her
You
like
can be
she's some kind of
hygienic.
dog.
You can still be hygienic and
She's
think
got
about aliens.
shit up in her pussy.
Well, but I don't think that has anything to do with the alien invasion that happened during Roswell.
Poor stinky Lejeune. I wish she could get her shit out of her pussy
I'm sure
and be ready and be able to live for free.
Flush it out!
She could.
Get a hose on it.
All right.
No.
Pay a kid in the neighborhood a
You
quarter.
cannot pay a child to scoop. God damn it.
In 1947, you could.
Well, you could pay a kid to do a lot of stuff then.
I am now completely switched on this idea. Before I thought Roswell was bullshit, but now I actually think that they found something from an extraterrestrial nature.
Well, you're using the ignorance fallacy right now, saying that
What you
just
don't know is what you don't know, but what you know is what you know. But what you don't know sometimes can be bigger than what you know.
You sound like Donald
because you don't
Rumsfeld.
know
I
it.
can't even deal
I'm
with
just
it.
saying it's about what you know and what you don't know.
No, you don't know.
You don't know, but what is it that you don't know?
I
Something
don't
bigger
know.
than what you know.
We can't go down this road.
that's-
Something bigger.
and that is the ignorance fallacy that what you
Right.
don't know has to be what you want to know.
No,
Or what you
no.
don't
It's
know
some of
has
what
to
you
be-
need to know.
All right.
But I'm on a need-to-know basis. But you know what I need to know? Everything. And there's a bunch of stuff I don't know. And there's a bunch of stuff that I do know is also highly debatable. But I do believe that the stuff I don't know is going to be more important than the stuff I know.
Right. So what you don't
Because
know.
of how little I know.
Sure, it makes all the sense in the world.
Well, the debris was on its way to Dayton, Ohio. Now, weather balloon or not, a small amount of the debris was packed up into 4 brown paper wrapped packages and loaded into a B-29 by Major Jesse Marcel, who, of course, is the #1 witness to Roswell. He was ordered to supervise the transfer.
Well, you know that Jesse Marcel did not actually himself put those on a plane. It was a janitor named Barney.
Right. I mean, they just wrapped it up like a leg of lamb. I mean, did they tie
Like
it
in the
with
movie
little...
Scrooged, when he shows up with his dad, and the flashback shows up with him being like, hey, "That's $100 worth of veal."
Right.
Yeah, that's how it looked.
So they have no respect for the debris. They don't think this is even going to be a story.
Well, in 1947, that's just how you transported everything. You just wrap it up in a brown bag. They didn't know really what it was. They knew that
Yeah.
it was important, but on the other hand, you also don't want to draw a lot of attention to it.
It's because all their fathers were butchers. That was the only job that they could have gotten.
So much butcher paper everywhere. Everybody had the roll in their house.
Right?
No, Marcel, he comes into General Ramey's office. He hands Ramey the boxes. Ramey puts the boxes on his desks and said, "Hey, listen, let's go into this other room. I need you to show me on a map exactly where this crash happened." Marcel goes in. He says, "All right, it's right here. It's near Corona, about 75 miles outside of Roswell."
These are the direct coordinates.
These are the direct coordinates. They come back to the office, and Jesse Marcel finds that the 4 boxes were missing, and they were replaced by a clean yet mangled radar kit of reflective foil, wooden sticks, masking tape, and baling twine with a little bit of rubber thrown in. In other words, all the makings of a weather balloon.
And the only thing Ramey could say afterwards was, "Gotcha." Presto changeo. What if they just went into the other room and it was just Ramey showing him one of those pens that you turn upside down where the woman gets naked on the side of it?
yeah.
Look at that.
Whoa.
Look at
Wait. What?
Look at that. Whoa. And then you turn it. Yeah, look at that.
Booby, what? Whoa.
That used to be porn.
That is porn. And then you go out, and then every single bit of hard facts about UFOs is gone. For the rest of time gone.
Oh.
U.S. history's changed.
That chick's got boobies in the pen.
Look at that.
So that UFO material's going on. Could I get the pen?
And the story stayed dead until 1978. 1947 to 1978, this was a non-story after It's a Balloon. That is when Major Marcel was tracked down by our old friend, nuclear physicist and UFO researcher, Stanton Friedman.
The most fearless pear-shaped man in existence.
Oh, personal hero of mine as well. Now, the Roswell incident was published 2 years later, and the rest is history.
Now, this is Stanton Friedman's Stairway to Heaven. Now, he has been cobbling together information about Roswell up until this point, left and right. This is before MJ-12 papers. This is him investigating the idea, because you remember the brief history we've done about Stanton Friedman is that he was a nuclear physicist. He had various security clearances and had heard bits and pieces about UFO stuff. And because he was a nerd, he was into sci-fi as a kid. And eventually, like we are sort of doing with our lives, he is turning his childhood predilections into a career.
Absolutely. And destroying, I think, a couple of families in the process.
Very much so. But when it comes down to the truth, it's bigger than a wife, quote
Every
unquote.
single one of his books, in the foreword, he thanks his family for putting up with him and apologizes profusely.
Well, if you've seen any one of his talks in entirety, and if you have, I will give you a $20 bill. If you watch any one of those in entirely, can you imagine spending a lifetime with the man?
You just got to learn to love him.
yeah, you got to learn to love him. Yeah, and I actually, when I got these Roswell books at the International UFO Museum and Research Center, I, of course, bought a signed Stanton Friedman book Facebook, and I asked the woman at the gift counter, I was like, how do you know him? How is he? She's like, you know what? A lot of people think he's stodgy, but I think he's just the nicest fella in the world.
Isn't
And
that
I'm like,
something?
wow, you fucked Stanton Friedman.
Also,
Why did you make the mental leap that she had sex with him?
I could see it in her eyes.
She just said that he wasn't terrible.
You could know.
She
You
loved
could know when someone's had sex with Stanton Friedman if their eyes can go wall-eyed independently. You know, like eat.
She did have a veiled insult in her compliment.
Both, though.
I mean, it was it was a quote. Yeah, some people say he's stodgy because apparently, I guess in Roswell, Stanton has a
bit of a reputation.
bit of a reputation.
I'm sure
that
he does.
He's a known quantity.
Hard-nosed journalist. Also, the owner of up to 150 yards of suspenders.
Yes, and a hell of a YouTube channel.
But the other thing about Jesse's story, yes, it is creative. His story tended to change quite a bit. And because of this, UFO researchers are able to cherry pick bits and pieces of Jesse's story to fit whatever narrative they need
Right.
whenever their claims are debunked. They're allowed to change the story. And they feel perfectly comfortable doing so. For example, when Marcel originally told Stanton Friedman about flying the debris to Fort Worth, he claimed that he was the pilot, that he flew the material himself. But when debunkers looked into his military history, they found that he had never actually even been a pilot, despite him also claiming that he shot down 5 enemy aircraft during World War II.
And what's funny is I did it with just my finger guns.
Oh, amazing.
And it's just like I was standing on the wing of the plane. You wouldn't believe it. Everyone said, Jesse, you're crazy. And I said, I'm crazy like a goddamn maroon.
Well, that would make you crazy.
A maroon is a type of weasel. I went out
Oh,
onto
I
the
see.
wing of the plane and I was just pointing my fingers just because I knew I could.
Right.
And I took down all of the Luftwaffe with just my index finger.
Isn't that's a passenger airliner?
Yes.
Those are innocent.
I had commandeered a passenger airliner. I was going to Toledo to see my sister get married. And
Right.
I got to say, we were all even surprised she was getting married because she was 475 pounds.
But you hijacked the plane.
Oh, I hijacked the plane, but I could because I told them I was a pilot.
Where were you on 9/11/2001?
Oh, I was in the grave. Oh.
Yeah, he did it. He died in the late 70s.
Oh.
And Marcel, he was all like, as far as other things that he lied about, he bragged to Freedom that he had a bachelor's degree in physics, that he studied at 2 different universities. But investigators found that he never attended one of the universities and didn't finish his degree at the other. And in fact, his military records state that when he was inducted into the Army, he listed his education as none.
I mean, if
or
you're-
high school.
Street smarts.
Right. If you're gonna lie about it, give yourself a master's. He just went with the bachelor's degree.
Yeah, he went with the bachelor's of physics.
I don't want to go too crazy.
Well, yeah, because if the master's at some point, something be like, oh, well, you know how to handle this. You have a master's in physics. And then he would have to be like,
Let me show you
Let-
my pen.
I got this pen once.
Yeah, and when faced with these outright lies, these aren't even exaggerations, these are outright lies, researchers rationalize this by saying that military records are, quote unquote, notoriously inaccurate. And that may well be, but it's a huge contradiction to, on one hand, say military records are notoriously inaccurate when it doesn't suit you,
Right.
while using those same types of records involving transfers and trips and telegrams as proof that something was going on. It's like Alex Jones saying the mass media is lying to us about Sandy Hook and Aurora and Boston and is complicit in the globalist takeover, and then turning around and using a news story from CNN or NBC as proof
because
that the
your source
globalist takeover is
Your
happening.
source material
right.
is from the globalist fucking
Yeah.
source. It's all
But
the
that
same
cognitive
bullshit.
dissonance, but it doesn't add up in their minds.
But he is right that aluminum is making kids gay.
That is possible. It's a bit of a confirmation bias as well there,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, they're looking for they're finding what they want. They're looking
Right.
for proof, and they're finding it in the same places that they're finding lies.
But isn't that the nature of reality in general, dog meat?
Yeah, it is.
That you seek out what you find, and what you find then shapes your reality, and then when your reality then becomes your own singular reality, and then it becomes reality itself.
Truth is.
Truth is boom.
Truth is.
boom.
Boom. And out of all the witnesses, only 7 of them claim to have actually seen the debris. And a couple of those 7, by the way, were children at the time.
But what
You
they
know-
do remember is afterwards. But that's what's interesting, though, is that the memories all line up. For that stuff, with the debris, the memories line up. And the fact that these kids were literally threatened with death by government spooks is a thing that is it's interesting.
I mean, but it's also, but you could also see that, like, there's things that from when I was a kid that I don't really know whether they're dreams or whether they're reality.
You were molested.
No, he was not molested.
not-
It was a goblin
It was
outside
a pig.
of his.
Was the
a
pig
pig
goblin
goblin.
real? Was the pig goblin not real?
It wasn't your uncle.
It was not my uncle. What
It's
was my
real to you.
Yeah.
So then it becomes real to everyone.
Yes,
Right.
it is reality. The pig goblin of Lubbock, Texas exists.
In no way, let's make it clear, was Marcus Parks molested.
Never once.
Not one time.
Close. A couple times.
Well, now we're okay. All right. We don't want to
Sounds
really
like
know.
you were flirting with him.
Yikes.
No, Corso claims that in 1961, he was given the official files on the material that we recovered from Roswell and was instructed to filter the technology from the military into the mainstream via industrial development.
You fold it in like chocolate into a delicate mousse.
Oh, yeah, now you're talking.
No, eventually, through reverse engineering, people like Corso were able to develop such modern technology as lasers, integrated circuitry, fiber optic networks, accelerated particle beam devices, and even the Kevlar used in bulletproof vests.
Tickle Me Elmo, Betamax, spinny hats that little kids wear. That with spinny hats when little kids wear. Yes, you see them in the pictures of the 1920s. What that is time travelers from the future, from the 40s, going back into the 20s and putting them on kids' heads.
Interesting.
And also condoms.
You've never seen a skinny kid with a spinny hat because they'll just go right up.
Yeah.
You gotta be fat, stay low.
Pinion.
That's right.
Well, apparently, Stalin's plan was to take a bunch of mentally challenged children.
Like kids that were too smart, and so they needed to be challenged. Like it was like school was too easy for
that's
them.
right. Yes.
No.
This is advanced classes for the Russians.
He would take these mentally challenged children, hideously deform them using Mengele-style tactics, load them into an experimental aircraft, fly said aircraft over the border from Mexico, crash land them near a population, and when the deformed, retarded children crawled out of the wreckage, they would spark a War of the World style panic.
It's a balloon. But that's a problem. They kept saying that when they came out of it.
Right.
It's a balloon.
It's a balloon.
Unbelievable.
It's a great idea.
To me, it's the thing that makes the most sense.
It has slowly eroded our education system. We're doing terrible, against the Chinese and things like that.
But-
So I think they might have won.
Her theory is not that it's Mengele-style tactics. Her theory is that it was Mengele himself. And that the Russians
See, I missed that. That wasn't in the last chapter.
No, the Russians had hired him in between after World War II. He went into hiding.
Yeah.
Stalin kept him alive. Basically, they caught him, kept him alive just to make this experiment. And this is a part of what her anonymous contact, and the entire book, all of the other contacts that talk to her about Area 51, they state their names, they go on the record, or they talk about the top secret programs that are happening in Area 51. This man said, spoke anonymously, and he said that, yes, that Stalin and Mengele designed them, literally drew them on paper.
Right.
They created the modern gray together just because Stalin used to do this thing, because Mengele used to do this thing back in the day where he would split open Jewish people's heads and put extra skull in them just to see what they'd look like.
Yeah, strange it turns out.
Now, supposedly, the Nazis were masters of UFO technology.
UFO-like technology.
Right.
Right. Can we say,
pedantic piece of shit. But and as far as the Nazis and UFOs go, and as far as the Nazis and advanced technology goes, CIA agent Gene Poteet said with a fair amount of confidence,
Hitler invented stealth.
and
Is that your interpretation of a fair amount of confidence?
is that what Gene Poteet sounds like?
Hitler invented stealth.
There we go. That's a fair amount of
That's
confidence.
a fair amount. And Hitler used that technology to build his stealth bomber, the Horton Ho 229.
God, it sounds like a special, like,
Huge prostitute.
yeah, a huge prostitute or just like 5 pounds of mashed potatoes. Here.
Now, this is where I want to say again, the layers of disinformation and the stories that have been built into Roswell are all completely insane. I wonder why some of them exist. Why did this officer, quote unquote, anonymously tell Annie Jacobson that this is what's happening at Area 51, that this is what happened? Right? Like, why did that story come out of nowhere? Maybe that is why they wanted it to keep it so secret, but it's just so nuts. It's even more nuts than aliens.
Well, the Russian one is nuts. The Nazi one kind of makes sense.
But the Nazi one is also...
The Nazi one is the most reasonable theory we put forth so far.
But is the UFO technology even real? We don't see planes hovering now. It's 2016.
Maybe it just didn't work very well.
But it just seems like if they were zip-zopping all over the place in fucking discs that had 0-point energy, whatever the fuck it's called, we'd have it. It'd be places.
Maybe it was unsustainable. Maybe the airplane industry, in conjunction with the automobile
I'm about
industry.
to leave. I'm about to leave. No, it's true.
No,
Because
maybe it's very possible that, you know, that this is
the fuel companies.
Yeah, a free, clean energy source would be hidden from us, or it could be the exact opposite, that it is cost prohibitive, that it takes, you know, a ton of plutonium to make 0-point energy, or it could be that the power sources were from an unknown source,
It's
and we
people. It's people.
if it was people, we would have zero problem.
We would get rid of the homeless problem in a second. We
yeah.
just grind them up into UFO fuel.
Yeah, or it could be
You
that
should
we
talk about
just
that on
ran out
Fox
of it.
News tomorrow.
Yeah.
Do Grind up homeless people because they can be used for UFO technology. No, to fuel UFO technology.
That will please your base.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it, Ben.
I guarantee I do it. Guarantee it.
Then, of course, if it's not the Nazis and it's not the Russians, of course, there's the possibility that it is God.
Now, this is from The Invisibles. You're excited about this.
Well, I'm very excited about this, and I think Grant Morrison's The Invisibles, while it is fiction, honestly just as credible as any other thing, any other source that we use for alien episodes. This theory, this Grant Morrison's theory, it says that what was captured in New Mexico in 1947 was, for all intents and purposes, God. Here is an abridged version from what I remember. The aforementioned Trinity atomic test in the New Mexico desert opened a hole in quote-unquote reality, and when Robert Oppenheimer uttered the words,
I am become death, destroyer of worlds.
he invoked the idiot god of nuclear war, which caused the creator of their universe in the form of Magic Mirror to goop out into the New Mexico desert, where it was promptly scooped up and kept captive in, you guessed it, Dulce underground base.
So it's either Doi Doi Russians or God?
yes. And maybe there's no difference between the two.
And of course, if it's not Russians, if it's not Nazis, if it's not God, who else could it be? The devil.
It's always something. You know what? Don't blame the fucking devil.
Don't blame the devil.
Don't blame the devil. The devil's fine with you.
cooler
The devil
if it was
barely exists, and you're nothing. You are nothing.
Why are you yelling at people?
I'm already mad.
It would be so much cooler if it was the devil.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Yeah, it
So it'd be
would be.
way more metal.
And of course he crashes the plane. He's getting blown by like an 8-headed lizard demon woman.
Fuck